Hi, this video is ACT Math Formula second one, Algebra for part 3. So if you guys look at the slide, page 33, it says composite functions. So composite function is how you can put different functions together. So let's take a look at the question first, and then I'll explain how you're supposed to do. So it says that f of x is given as radical x, and g of x is 7x plus b. Then whatever the question saying is y equals f of g of x, and then it passes through 4, 6. So which means we can put 6 here, we can put 4 here. So which means g of 4, that's something that we can get first. So which means if you put 4 here, it's going to be 28 plus b. And then by itself, we have to put it into f of x. So that is equal to square root of 28 plus b. So if you square both sides, it's going to be 36 equals 28 plus b. So b has to be 8. This is one way you can do. Another way, if you want to combine all these together first, and then you want to do it, that's another way you can do too. So which means make this one, set this one first. So f of x is square root, and g of x is 7x plus b. That is y. You put it up, put it like this, and then you plug in and then do it. That's another way to do. And then special functions. Special functions, you just follow the given instruction for this notation. Whatever you have, second one you square it, and first one you subtract. So going back to the question here, f of x plus y comma x minus y. Then, as we see from the given condition, second one you square it, then minus the first one. So we FOIL this first, x squared minus plus y squared minus 2xy, and then you distribute this minus x squared minus y squared. Then this 2 goes away, this 2 goes away. So only left is this part. And the next one, numbers of solutions. We have two different types of numbers of solutions in ACT or SAT. The one is when you have ax squared plus bx plus b equal to 0, and then discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. If this is greater than 0, 2 roots. 0, 1 root, less than 0, no real root. Another one that, for this particular question is when you have two different lines, like ay minus bx equals c, ay minus bx plus c. So what can we do with this? The question is, we have to figure out, the relationship between these two. So the question says, the answer choice, whatever 1, 2, 3, it says two parallel lines, two intersecting lines, and one single line. So what does that mean by two parallel line is if slope is equal to each other, but then y-intercept is different. That's when you get the two parallel lines. And then slope is different, then you can have like this two intersecting lines. And then if the slope is equal and then y-intercept is also equal, then you have one single line. So in this case, if you think about slope of this one, the first one, ay equals minus bx plus c, and then y equals minus b over ax plus c over a. So slope is this one. And the second one, ay equals b, oh this is x, bx plus c, and then y equals b over ax plus c over a. So if you compare slope, this one and this one, they're two different slopes, then this one is whatever you can see, so which is one solution. And then doesn't matter with this y-intercept. So that's why the second one is only like right answer. Relate to this question, one thing that you need to remember is, let's assume two lines like this. And the first condition, no real solutions. That means two parallel lines. So how you can make two parallel lines is the slope has to be equal to each other. So then A has to be equal to D, and then B has to be equal to E. But C cannot equal to F. If C is equal to F, that becomes same line. That's why the second one is infinite solution. As soon as you see infinite solutions, solution, that means a single line. So what you have to do is A is equal to D, B has to be equal to E, C has to equal to F. Next page, for what value A would the following system of equation have infinite number of solutions? As I said earlier, infinite solution means a single. What did you do? Everything has to be equal to each other. But if you look at the equation, these two are not equal, these two are not equal. But then how we can make equal is if you multiply by 3 on the top equation, then the new, after you multiply it, it becomes 6x minus 3y equals 24. Now, this two equal to each other, this two equal to each other, this two has to be equal to each other. So we can say 4a equals 24, a has to be 6. Now, asymptotes. We have two different types of asymptotes. Asymptote means infinitely getting close to like some point. Let's say you have graph of this, then horizontal asymptote is getting close to this and this. So, which is horizontal asymptote has to be the x equal to, y equal to 0. That's how you see. Or graph of this and this, then it has two different asymptotes, this and this one. So then the vertical asymptote is for the x equal to 0. And y equal to 0 is a horizontal asymptote. Then how are we supposed to figure this out is another question. So vertical asymptote is always denominator equal to 0. And horizontal asymptote, usually for this question, fraction, you have two different, like, the top and bottom. Then the highest coefficient, we just like, put it equal to each other. But something that you have to be careful about is vertical asymptote is always x equals, and horizontal asymptote is always y equals. sometimes they try to trick you with this too. So the question here, two vertical asymptote, one horizontal asymptote. What is the horizontal asymptote for this one? As I said earlier, horizontal asymptote is highest coefficient. So 2x squared minus 18, x squared minus 5x. So in this case, 2 and 1 is highest coefficient. That's why you have to put y equal to 2. So 2 over 1. If they ask you about the same equation, but then they ask you about vertical asymptote, then you're supposed to do 2x x squared minus 5x equal to 0, which is x minus 5. Then you can find it as x equal to 0 or x equal to 5. These two lines. Similar question like this, but then it looks a little bit different in this case now. 2x plus 2 over x minus 3. Now the question is, top one, if you actually distribute this, 2x squared plus 4x minus 3. The problem is the degree is different now than what we should do. This is like slanted asymptote. But you don't need to worry about too much. Like as long as you can figure out the answer for this one, out of mind, you can use anything. So the most accurate and easiest way to do is just draw a line. And you can find this point as 3, 16. Okay, you're supposed to do vertical asymptote as x equals 3. So this one has to be x equals 3 because vertical asymptote. And then horizontal asymptote is also another one that you have to do is to get the slanted asymptote, you have to do the division, long division first. So 2x squared plus 4x divided by x minus 3, you have to put 2x squared minus 6x, so 10x plus 10x plus minus 30, so it becomes 30 left. So then this one we can rewrite it as 2x plus 10 plus 30 over x minus 3. And then the slanted asymptote is when you plug 3 here, because this is why the vertical asymptote is 3, so then it becomes 16. That's how you get the 16. But you don't need to worry about too much detail. You just do the actual lining, and that's what it is. And then now inequality. When you have inequality, the best way to do is you can just graph it out on the number line. So then it says x 6 4 plus 2x. So then 2x is greater than minus 4, x is greater than negative 2. And number line, x has to be greater than negative 2. And then less than 6 and equal to 6. So between these two. And then another one that way to do is when they ask you x squared is greater than 25, then essentially what you can think about is two different graphs. So on the graph, y equals x squared, and this is 25 line, y equals 25. Then this is greater, so then greater part is this and this part. So this point is minus 5 and 5. So then it has to be number line like this, and this is 5, and this is negative 5. Or easier, I mean, this is the way how you're supposed to think about, where this idea comes from. But then when you think about just by inequality itself, you can do this. This is x plus 5, x minus 5. When inequality is like open to this equation, it's always, you can remember that, x is greater than greater 1 and lesser than less 1. So then greater than greater 1 is 5 and less than lesser 1. It goes together with the absolute inequality as well. The next page, this question is really complicated, but that's not true. Okay, this is the graph. Minus 1, 1, 2, 1, 2. The given condition that, the question says x minus to the fourth has to be less than x minus 1. So the parabola has to be less than the linear. So then only this part you can see that linear is greater than parabola. So that's why it has to be between 1 and 2. So you don't need to solve or anything. It's going to be just simple. Absolute inequality. So when you have absolute value with inequality, you need to remember two things. So basically, it started off of this one. So when you have this, x equals plus minus a, similar to that, when you have inequality, as I said earlier, that if it is open to, this inequality is open to the x side, then always you have to remember greater than greater one, and then it lesser than less one. So greater than greater one is a, and then less than lesser one. And two, three, if it is the other way around, it is always in between. Okay. Having said that, if you look at the question, it says this 2, maximum value of this one. Oh, this is nothing to do with solving this inequality. So maximum value means you can think it as since it is absolute value, you can test out two different things, maximum or minimum. You can put, because minimum can be negative number. If you actually put negative number because of absolute, it can be like a bigger number as well. So to make the maximum, y has to be maximum, the x has to be minimum. So y maximum is -3 and minimum -2 times minimum is 2. So which means this is -7. So absolute, it's going to be 7. And then minimum case, if you think about it, minimum has to be minimum minus maximum to make minimum. So y value has to be minimum, -4, and then -2. Maximum is 5. So this. So then this is -14. So that absolute value, it is 14. So it looks like, this is bigger. So again, how far it can go up or down. So we don't know yet which one is maximum because absolute value. Okay. So it's 14 is the answer. And then move on to next page. Now this is the case that, I explained about the absolute inequality. So this one is open to x, which means greater than greater one, lesser than less one. So x minus c is greater than greater one. X minus c is lesser than lesser one, less than lesser one. So b greater than c plus 2. B less than c minus 2. Now, if it is inequality, you can see this is c plus 2, and this is c minus 2, and then you can graph it like this. Next page. Given a real number n such that absolute n is greater than n, which of the following must be true? So if you think about this one as graph, this is first graph and second graph, let's say. And first graph looks like this. This is y equals absolute. And second graph is just this. So then which one looks like, greater? This is all same, so you don't need to worry about it. This part is only greater part. So that's why n has to be less than 0. If you have this type of question, you don't know how to do with the graphing, the one that I can recommend is you can plug numbers. So let's say you put 5, 5, same, doesn't work. 0, 0 doesn't work. Minus 1, this minus 1 becomes 1. It works. Okay, then that's what when n is less than 0. Absolute function. So basic graph, as you know, this is y right and left and whatever you can do. So on the given question, it says absolute x squared 2 absolute x minus 3 equal to 0. Then absolute x, if you factor this out, 3 absolute x minus 1 equal to 0. Then we can say absolute 0 x is negative 3 and 1. But you never can expect that absolute x can be negative number, so we don't need to worry about this part. So absolute x equals 1 is the only one. Then x has to be plus minus 1. On the next page, x plus y is greater than 1. So this is open to x and y side. That means greater than greater 1, less than lesser 1. So x plus y is greater than 1, and x plus y is less than negative 1. So two inequality you can find. So y is negative x plus 1, greater than, and y is less than negative x minus 1. Now, if you think about the graph of it, so the first one, this one is y-intercept is 1. Graph looks like this. And the second one, this one, y-intercept is negative 1. And the slope is negative 1, too. So then, as you see, it is greater. So greater means top, and less means bottom. That's why it is D. Step function. Step function is, you can put it as this. What does that mean by step function is, it's just like round down. Whatever number you put as decimal, then it always round down. So let's say 1.5. Round down. People think that, oh, this is negative 1, but negative 2, because 1 down. Okay? And then negative 2.5, which is negative 3. Because of that, graph looks like this. 0 is 0. Up to 0.9999, it just stays 0. But once it hit 1, it goes up to 1, all the way to 1.9999 stays like 1. And then same thing. That's why we call it as a step function, because it looks like step. Right now, this question is nothing to do with this specific equation, but one thing that we can figure out is how to interpret this step function is. So the question says that, the 6-mile trip, and then the fares of 2 cab companies are compared, what is cheaper fare for the 5-mile trip, 5-mile trip. So you have to look at the x value of 5 first. So when it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you have to read whatever up there. So left side, if you read 5, it goes through the first one. Oh, let me just graph it first. And then do it. First one, it looks like this. And then 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Circles. I'm going to just put circles in the back. And then without circle, that is filled. Then if you think about the 5, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is 5. Go up, it actually touches next one, which is this one. So this point here, it's going through because it's not filled. So you have to read this one. So if you read that, that is $12 for ABC. And the next one, Terry. Let me graph it again so that 4 to 4, and then 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So same, if you think about point when it's 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, going up, you have to read this part. So if you read that, it becomes 9. So 9 is cheaper, so it has to be 9. So don't forget that you have to go through this. Okay, that is a tricky thing. And then power of I. So, you know, radical -1 is interesting thing about this is if you square this out, we take out the radical, so it becomes -1. And then you multiply one more time on this. So since this is -1, it becomes -I. And then if you put to the fourth, which is this is I squared times I squared, which is -1 times -1, it becomes 1. So which means every 4 is coming back to 1. So whenever you have a question like this, I 355, the first thing you have to do is you have to divide 355 by 4. And then if you do that, 8, and then 8, and 3 left. So this is essentially same as I cubed, because, you know, that's what, every 4, you just like take it out. Okay, then this is -I. So this type of question, don't use calculator, because if you use calculator, you don't get to have remainder. You ended up having like decimal number, and then you probably get confused. And then let's move on to next page. Complex plane is not really difficult, but then you don't know what it is. It can be very, very difficult. But then it explains the whatever question itself is explaining about it. So let's say A plus B. That's what we call the complex plane. So this number, you can just think it as X. This is Y value. So let's say 1 plus 2I, then XY coordinate plane, you can just put it as this one is 1, 2. This is pretty simple. And then which of the following numbers, Z1, Z2, Z3, Z4, Z5, below is greatest modulus? Which means greatest modulus, the modulus, the definition of modulus here is given as distance formula. So basically they're asking which one is, like, distance wise, the farther like out, which is C1, without even like doing anything about this. But at least you have to understand what complex plane is, right? So when it is A plus BI, you always remember that it is A comma B. Polar coordinate. Polar coordinate is also not popular one, but you have to understand polar coordinate is always r comma theta, which means let's say this point here, we can go this point by x to x and y. So let's say this is 2, 2. Then we can go 2 to the right and 2 to the up. But at the same time, we also can go by distance r and then theta. So this is basically flying. So you just switch to the whatever the direction and you go to the like distance. But important thing about this is every time 360 degree or 2 pi, it coming back to 0. So the question here, it says 1573 degree. Which one is not equal to this one? The terminal side is. So you can just think about, you can play with 360 degree a little bit, and then you can find the answer from this. So the answer is 573 is the answer because the difference is 1,000. So this is nothing to do with 360, multiple of 360. So everything else, you actually like subtract or adding or whatever you do, you see those are all like, you know, multiple of 360 degree. Matrices, this is a lot simple, but and yet not many people are familiar with. So having a hard time with. So one thing that you have to understand for matrices is you have to get used to it. And then also when you look at the matrices, you can just think as, oh, this is a simple, easy question, okay? When you have any number, let's say 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, like this, you just distribute this. So it becomes 2, 4, 6, 8. Simple. And then if you have multiple, the addition, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, plus 5, 6, 7, 8. You don't do much. You just like add this same position. 1 plus 5, 6, 2 plus 6, 8, 3 plus 7, 10, 4 plus 8, 12. That's it. Nothing fancy, nothing special. And multiplication is more difficult. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's say 5, 6, 7, 8. How do we multiply? Is number of column is multiplied by number of rows. So which is 1 times 5 and plus 2 times 7. Same thing goes next one this way to this way. So 1 times 6 plus 2 times 8. The next one coming down, next row to column. So 3 times 5 plus 4 times 7. And then this next one, this to this one. So 3 times 6 plus 4 times 8. Because of that, the number of the column and number of rows are very important to figure out whether it is multipliable or not. Because this is 2. I mean, usually we put, you know, number of rows first, rows times column. So let's say this is 1 and 1. And then times row 2 times column 2. And sometimes they ask you about this is multipliable or not, then this 2 is important. This 2 number has to be equal to each other because number of column 1, 2 has to be equal to number of rows 1, 2 so that it's multipliable. Okay, so that's why it says CD, DC, CD, like 2 times 3, 2 by 3, 3 by 2. If you do that, the outside will come out as result, 2 by 2. And then the other way around, 3 by 2, 2 by 3, then outside 3 by 3 will come out. Now let's look at the question. 1, 0, 2, negative 1, xy, that is equal to 3 and minus 6. Using same thing, this to this has to be equal to this. So which means x plus 0 times y has to be equal to 3. And the second one is this to this has to be equal to this. So 2x minus y equals minus 6. from the first equation here, x is 3, that's given. And then you plug in here, that's 6 minus y equals minus 6. Y is to be at 12. Okay, the last question for this. The determinant is given as this, A, B, C, D. And if this is, the determinant is A minus, that's given. So you can just follow this. I mean, you don't need to worry about determinant until you learn like in a multivariable. If you have a chance to learn, maybe you get to see this one. Otherwise, we don't use determinant that much because determinant is all about the inverse matrices. So forget about it at this moment. But then you just follow this rule that, x, 8, x, x. If that is the case, determinant has to be AD, which is this 2, x squared minus and this 2, 8x. That is equal to minus 16. Then we can add 16, x squared minus 8x plus 16 equal to 0. Then x plus 4 equal, x minus 4, I'm sorry. X minus 4 equal to 0. 4 squared equal to 0. X is 4. Okay, this is it for the algebra, the review formulas. So I hope that, this can be like, helpful for your ACT test. So, and also very important thing is reviewing. So please review over and over again. Okay, we'll see you next time for next formula set, which is for geometry. Okay.